Good morning, Eli. Thank you very much for this interview for Enlace Judío. And my first question is, what Limud is?
Thank you. Good morning. Limud is a global movement that has brought together Jews of all ages and all backgrounds, now across some 42 countries, which dedicates itself to learning, that we can learn from one another and continue in our Jewish journey. In essence, it is a platform for building community and Jewish learning in a very diverse way.
And where and when did Limud started?
Limud started in 1980 in the United Kingdom. It was initially for educators, Jewish educators from a wide range of backgrounds, where there was nowhere at that time that you could learn with people from different denominations or streams of Jewish life, as well as those who are unaffiliated. And so it was quite cutting edge in saying, let's come together in an inclusive space. And over time it grew, and it's reached Mexico and other cities over the last decade.
How many countries in the world is there already the Limud program?
Limud today is in some 42 countries, and we have 90 Limud communities. Here in Latin America, we are seeing growth in new countries such as Brazil and more recently Venezuela. So we really have a spread across all the continents and pretty much wherever there's active Jewish life.
Is there a differential program in the various countries where the Limud program is presented?
So the Limud model allows for every country, every Limud community to design its own programming. Some meet several times a year, some have a residential program. It's defined by the needs and the desire of our volunteers. We're a volunteer-led organization. By those volunteers in that community. So there's no one single way of doing Limud. There are multiple ways, very similar to the way we look at Jewish life. There are multiple ways to express yourself.
In your experience, what is the proportion of young people who attend Limud?
So Limud is quite unique in that we're an intergenerational program, in that our organization reaches out to people into their 90s, for teenagers and young children, for families, and of course for young adults. And we find that young adults, young people, are instrumental in designing, building, and leading our communities, but they also involve, at every stage of the process, people of all ages. And we think it's quite special that you can learn together with your grandparents, and they can learn something from you as well. And there are not enough programs today where you can come together in that sort of diverse experience.
In what aspect do you think that Limud's perspective should be broadened?
Limud brings something to the Jewish community, whether it be in Mexico or in other cities, other countries. It brings a space where we can have important conversations on any Jewish subject matter or anything that impacts our Jewish community. And so we don't look at ourselves as an event business, as a set of conferences, but rather a place where people can come and gather and can have really difficult sometimes, but important conversations with one another in a respectful way. And that is what we are trying to leave in the community, a place where everyone can come together, where people can learn from one another, even if we don't necessarily agree. We have arguments for the sake of heaven, and essentially the thing that binds us, what makes it a Limud, are a universal set of values.
What are Limud's main visions for success?
Ultimately, we would love to see every member of every Jewish community involved, not just in our programming, but in programming that those individuals are passionate about. We would like to see success for us is seeing a more active, engaged Jewish community. We'd also like to see, as a separate measurement, more people taking ownership of their community, getting involved in leadership positions. People who are saying that I want to volunteer, whether it be at Limud or in other things in my community, my day school, my Deportivo, my JCC, or my synagogue, whatever is important to them. But that we are not consumers and we're not passive around Jewish life. And I think ultimately we would love to see more people involved, more partnerships across every community, and a sense of a global jury as well, where people can work with one another in different places.
How do you see the collaboration of young volunteers in Limud?
Young volunteers bring with them a spirit of energy. They bring with them innovation, and in many cases a lot of passion for change. They see established Jewish life as a little bit stale, or that they haven't had a way in. And so young volunteers for Limud are key catalyzers for change. And at the same time, we encourage them to be part of a real community, to think about people of all ages and backgrounds. We're not a program exclusively for young or for old. We would like to be a program for everyone. And that requires young people to also recognize other people's experience, the circumstance of a community. And that's where we as a central organization arrange training and retreats for all of our volunteers to come together and learn how to design community.
Has diversity in the ways of practicing Judaism created new perspectives?
Diversity in Jewish life often depends on where you live. So what we encourage in a Limud program is not only to showcase all the diversity of Jewish practice in your country or in your city, but to encourage to bring people from overseas, from other places, to learn from them as well, and to see what good practices and innovation can be brought. I think that we live in a world today where it's quite polarized, where people want us to conform and look at certain issues in one way. And if you're not with me, you're against me. And Limud is saying there are multiple ways of expressing one's Jewish life. There's a wide, diverse range of Jewish practices, and these are all welcomed, and they are all encouraged as we expand our Jewish horizons.
I know Limud has been held in Russia. How was this meeting?
Limud has been not only held in Russia, but across the former Soviet Union through a network of communities called Limud FSU, which is part of our global movement, and extremely successful programming. I think several thousand people now coming from the former Soviet Union, just in Moscow, I believe a couple of thousand people a year. And it's been, for many, not just in Russia, but here in Latin America, for many, the only Jewish engagement and piece of learning in their calendar. And so it is a point of entry into Jewish life for many Russian Jews, and for many Latino Jews, and for many Israelis. And I think we have become more aware of our responsibility that once you've entered into that marketplace called Limud, and you've experienced it, what else can we be providing for those people, for those participants throughout the year?
In Israel, are the Limud workshops held?
We're very fortunate that the Limud programs have reached from the Arava in the south of Israel to the Galil in the north of Israel. We have some 9 Limud communities spanning the country, and I feel that it is particularly an interesting observation that it was global Jewry, diaspora Jewry, that brought Limud to Israel, that we contributed to a healthier or perhaps a more diverse way of looking at Jewish life that Israelis can now benefit from. And we have several thousand Israelis participating in Limud programming every year.
What is the next program for Limud in Mexico?
So we're here this weekend. We're bringing together some 55 of our volunteer leaders from Latin America and North America for a leadership retreat and to learn together and to learn from the Mexican Jewish community. We've been very fortunate that on our International Advisory Council we have prominent leaders such as Marcos Meta, who have been encouraging us to engage and learn from Mexico, because this really is a remarkable community with a lot to offer. And so our next program is to learn from one another and make sure that we are providing not just knowledge but skills and a network that our volunteers can opt into, and that smaller communities in Latin America can know that they have a partner in other places. And parallel to this, there is a new team of volunteers in Mexico who are joining existing volunteers in Mexico to design future programming for the Jewish community here in Mexico City.
When is Limud going to be held and where?
Limud here in Mexico?
Yes.
It wouldn't be my place to speak on their behalf, but I do know that they are working hard to look at programming in this calendar year in 2019, if that's feasible. And there have been some recruitment activities already for young people, together with Moishe House in Mexico. And I believe that there's a real concerted effort to have a diverse team that will put on an excellent educational program for everyone in the community. And really my message is to encourage people, whether you are from a Sephardic community, an Orthodox community, a progressive place, somewhere where you don't have access to all of these Jewish programmings, come, participate, join the team.
When is it going to be held?
There is a possibility that the program will take place this autumn and in the fall, around November, but I believe that that is still being finalized and will be promoted hopefully very soon and shared with the community.
Is there something else that you would like to share with us?
I think at times when we come from far away, from Europe, where some of our leadership are based, from Israel, where I live, and from across Latin America, we underestimate how special every Jewish community is. And we're very excited to engage with the Mexican Jewish community, to learn from it, but also to bring ideas to it, to make it a more vibrant place, and to make sure that we have a successful Limud going forward, just like we had a wonderful Limud here in the past. And message really to work together, to learn from one another, and encourage people to get involved.
So thank you very much,
Thank you.
Eli, and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you very much.